Good morning, everybody, and welcome again to our very first webinar that we are hosting as a CRCNA. My name is Carla Keith. As I mentioned before to those who are on earlier, I'm the Communications Manager here at the CRC. I'm joined today by Jed Matz, our CEO, and Kristen Nunn, our Project Officer. We have quite a few participants on the line this morning, upwards of around 90. That's why we have muted you. And what we've decided to do today is to allow you to chat with us. If you've got questions, please raise your hand in the chat function. We're going to be logging your questions in that chat function. There will be time at the end of the session for us to go through those questions. I'll be keeping a kind of view of the questions as they come up, and the questions and answers will be available on our website, and we will have those available at the end, by the end of the week. We will also send out a bit of a brief for people who've been on the presentation today with those as well, those Q&As as well. Today's session is a general overview of our EOI processes. Like I said, there is a Q&A session at the end, but we ask that you probably keep those questions until the end, or however you can log them throughout in that chat function. If you have got specific project questions, you can contact us anytime here in the office, or contact one of our project managers in WA, that's Catherine Marriott, in Northern Territory, Sally Lego, and here in Queensland, either Jed or Kristen can help you. We are recording this session, as you all know, and it will be available via our YouTube channel until the 21st of June. That is because that's the window where we need to close down questions before the close of the expression of interest round on the 28th of June. I'm going to hand over to Jed now, and he's going to take you through our presentation. The presentation will also be available for any of you who would like a copy in hand. I'm happy to email those to you if you'd like.
Great, thanks everyone for joining us. Just to acknowledge our partners, Commonwealth Government and state and territory jurisdictions across Queensland, Northern Territory and Western Australia. Here's what we're going to quickly cover today. I'm just going to run through a quick background about the CRC, why we're here and what we do, in case you're not familiar with us. And we'll talk a little bit about the funding call for this year. This will be our third funding call. What we're looking for in the research projects and the focus that we're looking for within those projects. Then I'll hand over to Kristen, who works here in our Townsville office with me, looking after the Queensland projects. She's going to talk a little bit about the eligibility criteria, financials, and the application process. As Carla mentioned, we've got quite a few people registered for this webinar, so we've decided to take questions via the chat room. And so please log the questions there. We'll try and respond to those as we go, if we can, or at the end of the session if we can. And we'll also cover off a few of the normal questions we've got over the last couple of years, because that might hopefully cover a few of the questions. So, what is the CRC? What are we about? We're politically announced CRC, so unlike some that go through the bid process, we were announced politically and awarded $75 million to invest over 10 years, and so each year we put out a funding call looking for research partners to join the CRC, and so instead of the normal process for bids where we have research partners putting money up front, we ask the research partners to put money into the bids or the projects that they're putting forward, as opposed to investing just generally into the CRC, which means that we can be very flexible, and also that your dollars are saved unless you get your project up. You don't have to invest in the CRC, and then a particular project doesn't get up. So we have three areas of investment focus. Predominantly we invest in agriculture and food projects, which can be aquaculture as well, just to be very clear. We also have a focus in delivering improvements in Northern Health service delivery. And then we have quarantined, because of the importance of traditional owners in Northern Australia, some money within the 75 million to invest in traditional owner-led business programs within the areas of agriculture and food or northern health service delivery. So keep in mind those traditional owner business models must be within those two areas still. Basically, we're like any other CRC in the sense that we need an industry focus, and our research needs to have a really close linkage with industry, have strong industry partnerships, and therefore demonstrating that industry-led approach. We're very clear that we need a cash contribution as part of our project. If you haven't got some cash, then there will be a very small chance of you getting your contributions up. We can't invest, as most CRCs, in direct infrastructure or capital investment, and we're not necessarily about taking products through to full commercialisation, but we do work in the space of trialling things and demonstrating commercial scalability before they go to full commercialisation. So we have quite a large area of focus. We work across all of Northern Australia. The red dots you'll see there are where we have an office. So head office is in Townsville. We have a staff member in Darwin and one in Broome as well. So if you're a participant coming from Western Australia or Northern Territory or even Queensland, and you're looking for assistance in developing a project which covers all three jurisdictions, which does make it more attractive for us, then our officers in those regions can help you develop your projects and find further partnerships. Or if you're in that region and you're looking for a little bit of help, feel free to contact the people in those offices. And their contact details are available on our website. So we're very focused, given our political nature, I guess, on economic outcomes for Northern Australia. So we're really looking for projects that will create jobs, attract further investment from either international or domestic investors, increase supply chain efficiencies, improve the well-being of Northern Australian communities, either through health service delivery or capacity building, and generally improving, the improvement of the economic benefits that flow from projects to the communities within Northern Australia. To give you a bit of a feel for some of the projects that we're doing at varying different levels, we have three levels of investment. The blue triangle you'll see at the top of the larger triangle is work that we do with the jurisdictions at a state and federal level through the Northern Australian Senior Officers Group, where we look at some of the policy and regulatory barriers that are affecting Northern Australia and how they can be streamlined, or how industry can better engage with the regulatory framework to make investment less risky for Australia. The brown part of the triangle there is some work we're doing to identify what the key needs are for the sectors that are significant within Northern Australia, such as beef, rice, broadacre cropping, aquaculture, and so on. Identifying what their priorities are, and looking at what research gaps, what infrastructure gaps, what policy issues are facing those industries. And then once those projects are finished, projects will fall out of those. They will either go up to further work with NASOM in the blue triangle, or drop down into the green part of the triangle, which is where all our open funding pools sit as well, which is looking for research projects that deliver on those strategic impediments that I mentioned in the last slide, and where our funding pool sits. So I guess the more on the ground practical research, looking for industry-led solutions for the issues facing those industries. So each year we've had a slightly different research focus, but have all been fairly similar, and it drops out of the Commonwealth funding agreement that we have around our research focus. So this year within agriculture and food, we just have one research question that we're looking to answer, which is that we're looking for new innovations in key production systems, which is either looking and finding new technologies that will improve the efficiencies of agricultural production systems in Northern Australia, or also looking at alternate production systems that might be new or new to Northern Australia that will deliver benefits for those industries. So basically, we've been looking for good technology projects for quite some time, and we're really keen to get some more tech projects, new cropping systems, new species. Those type of projects are really important for agriculture and food. It doesn't mean we won't look at other projects associated with agriculture and food, but this is the key research focus for us. So when you're filling out an expression of interest, feel free or to call us about how you might best fit your project into sort of meeting that requirement. Some of the projects we've done so far include using technology to basically, including blockchain, to monitor the quality of produce through the supply chain and inform how that product can move better so it can access international supply chains. We've also looked at just better ways of producing mangoes so that we can increase technology and automated picking and those sort of things, as well as simply looking at what broadacre cropping projects would be best for Northern Australia. In the area of health service delivery, we have 2 research questions which are the same as last year. We're still looking for projects where there is innovation within the health service delivery model, which will improve health service delivery, especially for regional and remote communities, or create an efficiency in that delivery model, or make it more available to more Australians in those regional and remote communities. So very much the focus is health service delivery. But we also have an interest in looking at developing an export sector for health service delivery into the North Asian sort of region. So projects where we think we are good at delivering health services and think we can export that business model or that process overseas. We have an interest in that, and we get to see any projects in those areas. So we're very keen to explore those more. And finally, in our traditional owner-led business development area, our process is really around identifying new models for undertaking traditional owner-led business development. And as I said, these projects must be within the areas of agriculture and food and or health service delivery. So with projects that we've funded improving Kakadu plums and gummidge supply chains within Northern Australia to improve the profitability of that sector, or developing a cherubim agriculture industry in Western Australia, the type of traditional owner-led projects that we've funded so far, just to give you an example. We're about to hand over to Kristen to talk about more of the nuts and bolts eligibility criteria. Carla, are there any questions that have come through in the chat room that are worth stopping for now regarding what I've just said, or should we keep them to the end?
No questions regarding the content, so just a quick question about will the slides be distributed, and yes, we will be distributing the slides and making sure they're available on our website as well.
Okay, no other questions?
No other questions.
Great. Okay, over to you, Kristen, to talk a bit more about some of the eligibility criteria.
Yep. Okay, good morning everyone. So eligibility for our open funding calls, some things that need to be sort of considered to ensure you're eligible is to have at least one industry partner. It doesn't have to be the lead researcher like the CRCP projects. We're open for anyone to lead projects. We just need to have that focus on the industry outcomes. We also require significant co-contribution of cash and in-kind contributions that need to be met at a minimum 1-to-1, and going throughout the process, EOIs that have higher cash contributions are looked at a little bit more favourably, because it sort of demonstrates to us that that industry have a commitment to that project, and you know, investment. They have, you know, their hand in the pocket ready to go on that project. So it just sort of displays that to us. Needs to fit within one of those 3 investment criteria, the ag and food, or Northern Australia Health Service delivery, or traditional owner-led business in those areas. And we also need to ensure that the focus of impact is in Northern Australia. So if your lead research is sitting outside of Northern Australia, that's okay, as long as the impact is displayed to be in that remit, in that green zone on that map. Who can submit an EOI? Anyone can submit an EOI, an industry body or organisation, researchers, including universities and TAFEs, small and medium enterprises, community sectors or groups, and government agencies. So we're pretty open. I don't think there's anyone we wouldn't.
No, anyone can be the lead.
Yeah.
Yep. Or a partner.
Yeah, or a partner. Yep. Oh, just on that, we do need more than one representative organisation on a project for it to truly be a collaboration as well, just to note. What we're looking for, solutions to industry and issues that will benefit the whole industry, not just one player within that industry. Cash, as I said before, shows us you've got skin in the game, a clearly defined industry problem, well-articulated pathways to impact, and how your research will resolve that issue or barrier and be adopted by the industry. That's quite important for us, because we need to display the money that we've invested is having some payoff for Northern Australia. A well-thought-out engagement and communication approach that can be refined within your research plan, but just something for you to gauge and think about when you are doing up your EOI, that's going to be a significant part to your project. We want to see that you've thought about your stakeholders and really, you know, about the engagement process that you'll take. This year we're introducing letters of acknowledgement from our project participants. We want to see that they can clearly display that they are on board, and that they're happy to sort of sign on that dotted line at this stage to encourage that EOI through. What we're not looking for, we're not looking for projects without any sort of research or research questions that's looking to be answered. Proposals that are built on capital works or for the purchase of construction of facilities, such as like buildings or labs. Proposals for renovations or extensions. Projects of research activities which has previously been funded or is currently being funded by the Australian government or state or territory governments. We really need to be careful that we're not duplicating research. And we also can't cover institutional overheads in our in those EOIs. So just some things to look at there.
Just to be clear for those that might question that one, we can fund the overheads directly related to the research, but not institutional overheads. Yeah. That aren't directly related to the research.
Yeah. Project financials. So on the project financial spreadsheets, what we're looking at this stage is the CRCNA money that you're looking for and how it will be utilised across that project. Then also your contributions, cash and in kind. So they need to be plugged in as well. Roughly, it's about a rough budget of what you're looking to spend. So what on and where the money's coming from. Please quote GST exclusive amounts. I know previous EOI rounds we've done inclusive, but we are working exclusive now. Project cash and in-kind contributions have to be that minimum of 1-to-1. That's a 1-to-1 of a combination of cash and in-kind. So as long as you meet what you're asking of us, you meet that eligibility. We also calculate FTEs a little bit differently to the CRCP rounds as well. We don't work off a standardised FTE calculation, which has been a common misconception in our EOI rounds as well. So we work off your actual salaries, not that standardised 250,000 amount. The CRCNA calculates full-time equivalency
on an annualised basis, and these costs are captured in the EOI project financials, which are, need to be submitted with your EOI submission. And then there's just an example there, but I won't run through that. That'll be on the slides for you to look at later. The application process, so we will only accept submissions online and via our form through our website. We're happy to take questions via email, but we won't be able to accept any submissions via email. The applications close at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Friday the 28th of June, and late submissions or submissions received not through the EOI form won't be considered, and also after that date and time. CRCNA staff review, EOIs on merit. The advisory committees are also given an opportunity to provide recommendations as well. We then shortlist. The shortlist is provided to the CRCNA for consideration. Successful EOI applicants are then invited to work with us, the CRCNA staff, to help develop a research plan, which will eventually form up part of your contract.
I think that slide should say shortlist provided to the CRCNA board for consideration. Yep.
CRCNA contracts organisations, not individuals, so we don't do sort of multi-party agreements. We have individual contracts with individual organisations. So all of your collaborators will have their own agreement with CRCNA. Some of the questions that we've had today that might be useful for some of you out there that are sort of looking and wondering some things. We've got, is the CRCNA interested in looking at beef research projects while the beef situational analysis is being undertaken? The answer is yes, although the CRCNA is currently undertaking situational analysis studies in beef, cropping, health, service delivery, rice, forestry, Indigenous agriculture, aquaculture. This should not preclude any EOI proposals in this area. And we certainly don't want to quarantine off any industries in the meantime while they're being developed.
No.
Is there any cap on funds requested in the EOI? No, we don't have a cap on funding. However, we do have 75 mil over 10 years, so we do need to spread that out. And we can only fund for up to 3 years, so that's really important to remember as well. Have a look online at our current projects, and it'll give you a bit of a gauge on the types of projects that we're funding and the amounts that we're funding as well. Just remembering also that one-to-one contribution. So the higher cash you have as well is seen a little bit more favourable as well. Does your health service delivery question only relate to mental health? No, not at all. Mental health service delivery is one facet. CRCNA is interested in any and all health service modes which deliver against that research question. Yeah, so we're up to the end there. We're about to throw out to your questions, which Carla's going to run through, and we'll sort of, I guess, you'll rapid fire and we'll answer.
Yes, thanks so much, Kristen and Jed. So we have got a couple of questions coming through on the chat and via the Q&A function in Zoom. I will go through them now, and I'll direct the question to either Kristen or Jed, depending on where I see who'd be best to answer it. We'll go through, and those of you who have got their questions on the chat function and via the Q&A, I will respond as they're in there as well. But like I said, we will be capturing the answers and questions and posting them on our website as well. So Kristen or Jed, I guess the first question is, when we talk about cash and in kind, are we talking about cash and in kind together one-to-one, or cash one-to-one?
Cash and in kind one-to-one.
Yeah, so the combination of the two.
So the combination of the two to meet the one-to-one requirement.
Yeah.
But more cash the better. It's a competitive funding round, and you know, we've knocked back some really great projects just because they didn't have any cash.
The next one is there a minimum grant funding amount? I think that we did answer that in our previous slide, but if you just wanted to reiterate that message, that
no minimum. No. or
Yeah.
maximum?
There's no minimum on time either.
Doesn't have to be
yeah.
2 years, it can be shorter as well.
Yeah.
There's a maximum on time, but no minimum.
Yeah.
Can proposals include a capacity building component?
We'd have to look at that in more detail. The short answer is yes, and capacity building is important to us, but we'd have to look at what the detail was and how that was being delivered, and is there a really strong industry need for that, and are we the most appropriate funding group for it? So I'd suggest the person that asked that question to contact us individually and have a more detailed discussion about that.
And that is a probably good segue. If something doesn't seem to quite fit with us, we're more than happy to help try and find alternate funding too, if we can.
So that answers one of the questions here around, does the CRC, or are we able to put organisations in touch with each other if they're working on similar projects or if they're looking for partners?
So at this stage for the EOI, that can be difficult for us. It's probably easier for us on the back end of close of EOI to sort of pull together those players, which we have done in the past. So we had a significant number of cropping projects come through one of the years, and we've spent the last 12 months teasing out all of the applications that came through, and now pulling together some key players and moving that forward in that way. So I think, yes, we can, but I think it's probably a little bit difficult at this stage to do that, I guess, without us displaying a conflict. Do you think?
Yeah, having said that, if you're looking for partners and are not sure where to find them,
yeah,
we do maintain a membership and also an understanding of the capacities of different research, and so
we can help.
We can help point you in the right direction. And like Kristen says, if we see potential to link EOIs together to create better collaborations, we will approach you and ask you if you're interested in that.
Fantastic. Can we explain a bit more on the definition and how the treatment of FTEs when people are doing their project financials? Can you explain more on the actual FTE as opposed to the standardised FTE? And we do things slightly different to how some people might have experienced it.
Yeah, so we do work off an annualised sort of salary amount. So let's say Jim Smith gets paid $100,000 annually for the year, but he's working 0.5 FTE. So the contribution to this project would be $50,000 per year.
So we ask you to list his actual full-time salary, and then how much of that salary is
the FTE,
just so that we can make sure that there hasn't been any confusion.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we do that is because as a CRC, we're trying to track our impact as well, and if we use the standardised 250,000, it actually reduces our impact against the cost of investing in research. So we want to try and measure our impact against real numbers, not against standardised numbers.
Yeah.
And of course, if people have once they come to do their project financials, if they do have questions, they can contact us and have that discussion offline as well if there is something they need to talk about in more detail. In the past, health service delivery was mentioned as a priority area. However, no projects were funded. Is health service delivery going to be seriously considered in this call?
It is seriously considered. We have funded one project with CSIRO around eye screening, and we're in the process of negotiating the second one from the last funding call, but hasn't been announced yet. So that's why it looks like nothing's been done. It's quite a large project, and we're having difficulties, bringing that all together. But we do look at it seriously, and yes, we are seriously looking at health projects in this next round, and hope to be funding some really good projects.
Just on that, I guess if you look at our ratios of submissions, we probably, I think at 115, what is it, like 15 were health health-based projects. So we don't sort of attract a lot either. So that's another consideration.
And that's something that internally we've had discussions about how we might rework things for our next funding call, potentially looking at separating out our agricultural sort of stuff and our health stuff to make it more attractive to people who are interested in and working in the health space. So we certainly have been taking that feedback on board as well, particularly from people in the health service delivery sector that have sort of come back to us with that feedback.
We're also trying to build collaborations with the digital health CRC. So if you are thinking about putting in a health project, if you are able to include the digital health CRC and our CRC in one idea, then and we can leverage two investments to make the money go a bit further, that would be very attractive to us.
Okay, next question is, in your criteria, will you give more weighting or priority to those EOIs with touch points and collaborators in all three jurisdictions, so that's Western Australia, Northern Territory and Queensland, or to disaster declared or previously declared areas? So I guess, would you give more emphasis if a project was in those drought declared areas, potentially?
We haven't discussed giving any more preference to disaster or drought declared areas, and it's probably not our role, so I don't think that would be a preference, although having said that, the board could determine that they would like to this year, so never say never, but we definitely do give preference to those projects that have impact in all three jurisdictions.
And even if the footprint of the project is only in one state, if you can demonstrate that it's replicable across the other states is also a bonus.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. While institutional overheads can't be funded by the CRCNA, can they be included in the in-kind contribution?
Has that one been asked before? Would institutional overheads
I think
can't be? No, I don't.
I think you could include it, but it wouldn't. You'd have to be beyond your one-to-one.
I don't think the Commonwealth would acknowledge it, so
Yeah.
I don't think you can. No.
So that's a
no.
No. They can't be included in in-kind contribution. Okay. When will the results of full proposals be published? So I think that might be, when will the outcome of the EOI be published?
Yeah. It's totally dependent on each project and when those projects are contracted and commenced, and that project team determine is the best time to launch the project. So we usually announce fairly in about October that we've approved 15 projects or 10 projects, but we don't give specifics about what they are, because those projects are in the process of moving from an expression of interest through the process of a full project outline with full methodologies, and we don't announce those until they're ready to go. So that can take quite a few months depending on how the contracts go.
However, we do contact every EOI lead to let them know if they've been offered funding or if they're not being successful. So we do contact everybody.
Fairly quickly.
Fairly quick once the review process is complete. And that's why we're quite strict on our closing time, because we have a couple of layers of review.
To round off that, so if you're successful or unsuccessful, you'll be told around, we're aiming for about October, early November to get that feedback through to people. And then we have that process of going through and developing a research plan, and the public and everyone will know about your project once it's fully contracted and we're ready to kick off and start that project.
Yeah, I think also we're sort of aiming for projects to commence 2020 to allow us time for that review process, the research plan to be written, and then contracting phase.
For successful applicants, when works are expected to start? So you said we're looking to have those started in 2020.
We can go earlier, but if people, I guess, will react as quickly as people respond to sort of any, that process. So if you're keen and you want to get up and running fairly quickly, we'll respond to that.
And if you come from an institution that is already doing projects with us, the contracting process is faster because we've already got the contract. We just add your project to the contract.
Yeah. So that's what we call our head agreements.
Yeah, head agreements with the various participants. Yeah.
Is the CRCNA interested in social impact research about the best supports that will support sustainable Indigenous business?
I think we would be very happy to look at that. I think that's sort of it's an area that I think the board are sort of still learning about and trying to understand more about the benefits of that type of research. So I think it'll be worthwhile having a chat to us offline about how we can make that project really be attractive to the board. The board are very focused on economic impacts, so we'd have to show how that type of research would lead to an economic impact.
Who has the right to the IP resulting from the research?
Depends on the contract, and each individual project is negotiable. Our starting point is that the IP is Creative and Commons, so it's available for everyone within the project to share as they see fit, and then we negotiate from there depending on the type of project and I guess the investment that person's willing to put in. If they want to hold all the IP themselves and make it a more commercial business, we'd be expecting probably a great deal of investment from that individual sort of consortium in terms of cash. But generally, Creative and Commons is where we start.
So we use research partners. Can we use research partners not in Northern Australia?
Yep. Absolutely. As Kristen mentioned before, it's not about where the research is being conducted necessarily, but where the impact of the research will be felt must be within Northern Australia. So Adelaide University could be doing the research down there, but once it's extended and picked up by industry, it happens within Northern Australia.
And to that point, we currently have a project with Auschem ASEAN in Singapore.
Correct.
So that's a great example of our reach and what we're able to sort of do with our partners. Yes, you can get a copy of the presentation. There's another question coming through. The projects that are undertaken, for example, the situational analysis of aquaculture, will the final report be made publicly available?
So
Sure.
Will all of our reports and final findings of all of our projects are all going to be publicly available on our website, and through the various institutions that we're working with. So the aquaculture project, for example, the project leader is James Cook University in Townsville. They would be looking to make that available as well through their publication.
We'll start building up a bit of a repertoire on our website as and when they're published. So yes, absolutely.
And in addition to that, Carla will be trying to aggregate those reports into an overarching story about what the high-level issues are for Northern Australia when it comes to sector development, supply chain development, and then policy and regulatory issues, I guess.
Which I'm super excited about, by the way. When will the funding be available?
Well, again, depends on how quickly we can go to contract, but the funding is available now, I guess. So it's a process that we have to work through to develop the EOI into a full project and then contract, and then we pay in arrears. So we have quarterly milestones, so I guess payment would be available within a quarter of when you start. So if you're starting in January, by March you could get your first payment.
And that's probably something worth reiterating, that we do pay in arrears. So and we don't start paying until the project is fully contracted. So whilst you might get the okay from us that a project is certainly being developed into the research plan phase, until it's contracted, and only then in that following quarter will you see payment flowing through. So it's certainly a bit of a warning against jumping the gun and potentially going ahead and getting excited and outlaying some expenditure. It's really about waiting till you're contracted, and we're there to help you through that process in any case. Can you clarify the topic of interest in healthcare? Is that around attracting inbound patients to Northern Australia?
It's we're talking the second focus area or the first?
It sounds like it might be around that building prospectus and exporting, exporting our healthcare health services.
I think that the idea of that one came from the potential that we are good at delivering healthcare in Australia comparatively to some of the countries that neighbour us quite closely in the north, and that there could be potential to build an export industry for Northern Australia around tropical health service delivery. So I think the idea was more focused around not bringing inbound patients in, but exporting our services. Having said that, I don't think it precludes a business model that where you would bring inbound patients if it was still delivering an economic impact to Northern Australia, and potentially expanding the capacity of our health service delivery system by giving us that scale of people to build off the back of a bigger health system. So I think we're open to any ideas in that area. It's a bit of a left field one that as of yet we haven't seen a lot of ideas in.
My proposal overlaps two of your priority research focus areas, agriculture and traditional owner-led business. Is it desirable to show the proposal benefits for the two focus areas, or do I just need to select one? So
I think we have the capacity in the EOI form for you to demonstrate that it overlaps, and it's more beneficial that you show that it overlaps, because it then enables you to access the two pots of funding that we've created, one for traditional owner and one for agriculture. So and we love those projects that do both.
We have to.
So so once you go through the EOI form, you'll be able to tease out, and that's where you can articulate how you're going to impact that target area. Will CRCNA consider the telehealth service delivery model for different health problems?
Yeah, absolutely. That's we've had a lot of sort of applications in that space. We've not stepped into it yet, but I think we probably will at some stage. Obviously, no guarantees, but telehealth is going to be important technology to bridge that gap of regional and remote. It's just really around how that service delivery fits into it.
Ensuring it's the right model that's going to work for those communities as well.
So yes, I think you've answered that question. But happy to discuss in more detail what you're thinking and what we've seen before and why that hasn't already fit.
What's the earliest start date for a project? I think we touched on that already. So
okay, if you say we offer by end of October, I would say earliest would be what, maybe start of December. But then you'd have to work pretty quick.
So it's really about how quickly we can bring the project through the research plan phase, get all the funding from your co-contributions, agreed to, and then move through to that contract, and then it's
contracting usually takes about a month at a minimum, so that's something to consider. Even the larger universities or institutes that have a head agreement still need to go through that motion of deeds of variation, and unfortunately, given that time of year, sort of academics are starting to get into holiday mode at that time of year as well. So.
Are there any other CRCs besides the digital health and agriculture, etc., that CRCNA would be able to bring into the picture via a joint EOI? So I guess that question is, are there other CRCs that we can work with and that we can potentially link up with?
Yeah, so food agility CRCs of interest around supply chain, food waste CRC,
soil CRC.
Soil CRC. There's a new CRC just been announced in I can't remember its exact name, but it's
Not a glue company.
no, it's a food CRC for I guess protected agriculture and other sort of new agricultural technologies. So just can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Sorry. They're the ones that come to mind straight away, but we're willing to work with any and all, and we also work closely with FIAL, which is the industry growth centre for agriculture and food as well. So, and happy to look at collaborations with them.
And we've just come from the CRC Association annual conference last week, and it certainly became clear to us, probably a bit more than any other CRC you may have experience with, that we've got much more flexibility just by the nature of our setup. We're not like other CRCs, so we can really work with other CRCs. It's just a matter of you know, getting through some of those details around, well, who's going to manage the project and who's going to report against it and that sort of stuff. But all of that is something that we can certainly flesh out and work through. So very long-winded answer to that question, but yes.
It's the Future Foods Systems CRC. The one I couldn't remember.
Yeah, we've just come at Future Foods. Thanks, Mike. Okay, I haven't seen any other sort of questions coming through. I am aware that we're coming up to the hour. We've got another 10 minutes or so. I'll put a call out for anybody else who has got a question. If you haven't felt that we've sufficiently answered those. There was a question about how do you subscribe to the updates from us. It is a little bit tricky. It's down the bottom of our homepage. It's called subscribe, or you can just email me. If you talk at the bottom of our homepage, it's subscribe, and that's where you can link through and give your details.
Hidden in the blue banner.
It's hidden. We are going through a refurb of our website, so hopefully that will be a little bit easier to identify in future iterations of our website.
Carla, when people get this presentation, will the links in this be live? So that subscribe, will this be? That won't be, that's an image, is it?
No, oh, that is, yeah. That's an image. Yeah.
Maybe we can put the link on here to the subscriber.
Yeah. So it'll come through as a PDF. I won't send a PowerPoint presentation.
I think this is our first go to webinar too, so any apologies for any technical issues that we might have had. But we'd welcome feedback on how the webinar went as well. Did we provide the information that you were looking for? Do we need to be more interactive, or are you happy to do it through the chat system? Anything like that. This is our first crack at it, so hopefully, so next year we can do a better job.
We've got a couple more questions come through. If there are common EOI areas, if there is a way for the CRCNA to get them to meet at the Karratha conference to thrash out the collaboration before submission.
Yep.
The Karratha conference will actually close.
It'll be on after our close.
It'll be on after our close. So our EOI closes at the end of this month. The Karratha conference is mid-July. So it's a great idea though.
Yeah. If we do see some things like that coming through, we might take that opportunity, but it'll just have to depend on what comes through.
Yeah, and so we certainly have the ability to sort of, you know, be a bit flexible around that.
But we're also happy to facilitate those conversations. We, you know, with the example of the cropping, we coordinated a workshop out of that. So, you know, we made substantial effort to pull those players together, and we'll do the same again.
Yeah, not to confuse everybody, but in addition to our open funding calls, where we ask people to send us their project ideas, we also undertake targeted funding calls where, through our research that we've already done, or through the process of developing this CRC, we've identified specific research needs. We will write terms of reference for a project and then put those projects out for people to respond with collaborations as well. So it's worthwhile subscribing in case you might not be successful through the EOI round, but there may be a targeted funding call that suits your projects or your research or your industry, and can collaborate in that way.
And just one more question, can you apply for multiple grants? So you've obviously got one,
yep.
So
Absolutely.
multiple grants across.
So Professor Joe Smith he's got his name on one EOI and another EOI, and
Yeah.
You can be on every EOI if you like.
You can be involved in multiple projects under the CRC. No problems with that.
Yep.
As long as you have the capacity to deliver.
Yeah, your FTE.
Probably, yeah. We don't want to see Professor Joe blogs with 3.9 FTE.
What is the criteria around meeting a specific number of the strategic objectives for the submission? So when we go through the EOI form, we ask people to sort of reflect on how their project might fit within our overarching aims as a CRC, growing GDP, growing jobs, building capacity. So are we looking for all of those to be met, or?
No, just one. Obviously, if there
you do one and do it well,
some that will meet more, but probably what we are looking for in that area is demonstrate that you can really justify that you will meet it, and the numbers that you put behind that in terms of how much you think you'll change GDP or jobs. If you put a ridiculous number there that you're going to increase GDP by $1 billion, it's probably going to put us off your project. But if you put a nice, well thought out calculation about how you think you can improve GDP, we'll probably respect that a lot more and make that more attractive. That'll make that application more attractive.
And I guess we know, our background as a federally funded CRC, it's all about jobs, it's all about the numbers. So that's what, the people that fund us want to see, and they want to see us driving that in all of Australia. So anything you can do to prove that and put some realistic figures around will be beneficial.
Great.
Okay, well, we've still got 5 minutes. We can hold on for a few more minutes if there's anything else that either of you wanted to say.
Wanted to reiterate, if you've got a specific project idea that you want to talk about, that you can contact Catherine in WA, Sally in NT, and Jed or myself here in Townsville, in Queensland, and we can organise to have a one-on-one chat with you about your project and what you're thinking, and if you're not sure if it fits in the remit, or if you have any other questions specific around your project, we're all ears.
Yep.
Okay, well, at the risk of sitting here heavy breathing while everyone
lunchtime.
Thank you all very much for taking time out of your day. Like Jed said, this is the first time that we've run this webinar session. We are having another session later in the week for people in WA, who I understand it's a public holiday, oversight from me. And Kristen is also holding one-on-one sessions for people at various universities that she's contacted. We're here and available to talk to at any time during those business hours. If you've got ideas and want to talk to us about, don't be afraid to pick up the phone, send us through an email. However, all questions must be received and answered by the 21st of June regarding this EOI. But even if you don't think you've got something for this funding round, it might be worthwhile touching base and fleshing out your idea, because we do have the ability to, bring other people together and broker those relationships at the very seed of your idea. So unless there's any more questions, I'll call an end to the session, and thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.